basic introduction of what is JavaScript. Technically, we learned a point about what is JavaScript. So I given an overview about JavaScript. Means the language which is used for handling interactions with HTML. We can use client side, server side, or in even database and animations also. So what is the role of JavaScript in client side HTML with HTML? So technically JavaScript is used with HTML to manipulate DOM. What is DOM? Already we know about it. No need to explain. While learning HTML itself, I given you a point about DOM, document object model, right? So actually HTML presents DOM. And JavaScript manipulates DOM. HTML presents the document model and JavaScript manipulates the document model. That means HTML presents button and JavaScript makes the button function, right? Text box, checkbox, radios. So what are DOM elements? Already we know about them. So we know the DOM hierarchy actually. In the beginning of HTML, we discussed about the DOM hierarchy. So this is the JavaScript DOM, document object model and the browser object model. So already we learned about it. So I given you in the introduction of HTML itself, we learned about it. I given you this diagram also. What is the purpose of JavaScript? The first technical point is to manipulate these DOM elements, right? To manipulate the DOM elements. So, and also important, JavaScript is used for client side validations and handling interactions. So JavaScript is used for client side validations and handling interactions. Validations. So validations means when user enters the value, verify whether the value is according to the requirement or not. All such client-side validations are done by using JavaScript. Client-side interactions also, like printing, like verifying the browser version, checking whether plugins are present or not. All such client-side interactions also handled by using JavaScript. With HTML, JavaScript is used for this purpose. So technically, JavaScript is used with server-side technologies also. I told you Node.js is a server-side technology which uses JavaScript server-side. In database also we use, but we are now learning JavaScript with HTML. But we are learning the complete language of JavaScript. That means This knowledge is enough to even work for Node.js. In Node.js, you will learn Node.js, but whatever JavaScript they need, that is enough with this knowledge, right? So anywhere, if anybody asks, do you know JavaScript for their technology? Then you can say that yes, because what JavaScript we are learning, here we will learn the language also. That's the reason it will fit for everyone. It will fit for every requirement, right? So technically in HTML, its role is this. It is used for DOM manipulations, and it is used for client-side validations and interactions. So what are these, how they are used, we will see that, we will discuss about that, right? So next important, what we are going to learn is how JavaScript is used with HTML, how JavaScript is integrated with HTML. Actually, so why it is called as a script? That is the general question many times comes. Many times comes. Technically, what is a scripting language? So the main point about scripting language is nothing but so many concepts are there. The main point about scripting language is capable of executing without being compiled. So the interpret, actually the line by line translations will happen, right? So that means they need not to be compiled completely. I told you that yesterday one point, JavaScript is interpreted or compiled. That is the reason it is not just an ordinary language anymore. It can be used for uh, interpreted technique. It can be used for compiled technique also. All right. That means technically, if anyone asks what is scripting language, that means scripting language doesn't require the compilation here. So they just use interpreted. They are just interpreted. That means line by line translation will happen. Compilation means entire program is translated, right? So generally other programming languages need to be compiled before running, but scripting languages need not to be compiled. And important is, generally interpreted programs, they are directly converted into understandable of browser or certain operating system. So line by line translation happens, right? I told you that just in time compiled. That means after interpretation completed, if necessary, it will compile. So for that, we have several other options. So that means we can use, as with the compilers also, we can use JavaScript. That is a different situation. But individually, JavaScript is a language. Technically, scripting language is a language which doesn't need any compilation. That is why it is called a script. Many examples like JavaScript. JavaScript is one, PHP, Python, VB script. All these comes under the category of scripting languages only. That means technically a scripting language doesn't require compilation. Scripting language doesn't require compilation. So they use interpreter, or simply you can say they are interpreted. So that is the main point. So what is the concept of scripting language, right? So that is the main concept why it is called as a scripting language. What is scripting language? Already in the definition itself, we know it, but only the point we should know one more time is why it is called as a scripting language. That's it. Now, first important thing you need to know is we are learning JavaScript. So we are learning JavaScript. And I told you already, JavaScript follows ECMA standards. JavaScript follows ECMA standards. And the latest version of JavaScript is ES8 actually, ES8. But the version of JavaScript which is being used in various means worldwide. So regularly being used in all technologies, right? All technologies is ES5 and ES6. Those are the versions actually, right? Those are the versions actually. JavaScript versions are known as ES. Already I told you yesterday that ECMA script. They are referred as ES, right? So many versions are released. So the first release of JavaScript is ECMA script 1, and it is in 1997. Then the versions, we have so many versions. ECMA 2, so ECMA 2, that is in 1998, and ECMA 3, so that is in 1999. So 1999, right? And ECMA 4, right? So that is in never released. So because it has some technical issues, so which were technically solved in the next release. And ECMA script 4 version never released, never came into the market. Why? Because of the technical issues that it faced with its release of AJAX references. So a concept is there, AJAX, later you will learn about them. So due to the technical issues of these AJAX, they have to immediately upgrade that ECMA script 4. That's the reason, so never release. And ECMA script 5 came immediately after that, immediately 5.1 came. ECMA script 5 came in 2009, and immediately after 5, the 5.1 came. 5.1 came, and it is in 2011, right? And usually, so many improvements are happening in every version. Then ECMA script versions started giving the year numbers. So that means still, in short, we will tell about that. Actually, later ECMA version 2015. Then after that, ECMA script version 2016. After that, ECMA version 2017. So year-wise, then 2018, and which are referred as so ES5, ES6, ES7, and ES8. That means these are referred as ES5, and this is referred as ES6, and this is referred as ES7, and this is referred as ES8. That is the latest release, last version available. So ECMA script, in short, we always call it as is always called as European Computer Manufacturer. That means ECMA is always called as ES short. In short, we call it as. So, which version of ES we are using now? Actually, right? The version of ES we are using is which version of JavaScript we are learning is. So the version of JavaScript we are learning is about ES5 and ES6 across all the technologies. And ES7 and ES8 are not yet being there used everywhere, and they have several new abilities which are required only for the people who are dealing with technically who are dealing with server-side technologies and databases, especially in JavaScript. For those people, some new support has been introduced in ES7 and ES8. That is what they are using. That is what we are using, right? So that's the reason the ES7 and ES8 are the last releases available, but we are still working with the ES5 and ES6 versions only, because some improvements made in 7 and 8 which are not related to client side, that is related to database, that usually database and server side technologies will teach when you are learning them. When you are learning Node.js, when you are learning MongoDB like technologies, there they will teach you what those new facilities helpful there, right? Because they are related to that. Otherwise, rest of all options are same. Now you are learning the latest important version which is being used everywhere. All technologies across the world are actually still using ES5 only. So we will learn ES6 and ES6 related features, right? So everything available up to ES6 we will learn. So no need to worry about the points. Now, foolishly don't ask, sir, will you teach ES2, 3, 4, 5 also? Because I think you understand what do you mean by learning latest version. Okay. Now don't ask like, will you teach 2, 3, 4 versions also? So the point is, whatever the latest features and old features extended to it, we are learning. But one of the main problem with the JavaScript is actually the issues with the JavaScript is the major issues with the JavaScript. The main problems, drawbacks. The main drawbacks of JavaScript is technically JavaScript, it is not strictly typed, strongly typed. Strictly typed and strongly typed. What does that mean? I will tell you. Strictly typed and strongly typed. Strictly typed means even if a developer is not following the coding standards and he is writing the code in a shortcut method or in a illegal method, he is writing the code. JavaScript allows that. So you have to forcibly tell the developer that no, you have to write in this way only. Then only he will write. Otherwise, he will ignore so many things, and JavaScript will not show any problem for that. That means not strictly typed means it will allow developers to use their own techniques which are functional, which can work across browsers, and they can violate the coding standards. For example, we want to use a variable. Without declaring a variable, you should not use variable. But JavaScript allows to directly use variable without declaring. So then we have to force the developer and tell the developer that so write in a correct strict mode so that it will follow the standards. So this is one technical issue, right? And not strongly typed means data type problems are there. Suppose I stored a number in a variable. If I stored a number in a variable, what is variable and all I will tell you. When I store a number, in the same location I can store a string. In the same location I can store a boolean. That means you cannot restrict the users. User can store anything. That means value, any value can be stored. That's why it is not strongly typed, not strictly typed and not strongly typed. Another point is, so JavaScript have browser compatibility issues. JavaScript have browser compatibility issues. Already HTML is also having. That means it will not run on every browser in the same way. Why it will not run on every browser in the same way? Because every browser have its own compiler for translator for JavaScript, parser. I already told you. When we learned HTML, I told you that even HTML also have browser compatibility issues. Due to that, so you cannot use the same JavaScript every time. You have to change your JavaScript according to browser. We need to write for every browser. So browser compatibility issues are there. So actually, JavaScript is another major problem is it is not secured because JavaScript runs in client browser. Anything that runs on client browser, then what happens is anybody can interrupt it. Anybody can see what is happening. You cannot hide anything. So that means whatever being done client side, we can see that. That's the reason we need additional security implementations to handle complex data like credit cards, like passwords and all this. It's not secured because if it is running on browser, Generally, first question comes is why we need JavaScript in web technologies. Actually, we need JavaScript in web technologies to reduce burden on server. That means actually JavaScript is used to manipulate HTML. JavaScript is used to handle client-side interactions and validations. If anybody asked you a question like why you are handling interactions client-side, so because in web technologies, if validations and interactions are handled at the server side, then it increases burden on server, increases burden on server. So what is the point is JavaScript is used to reduce burden on server, The main intention of using JavaScript is to reduce burden on server. Then you may ask like, why can't we use everything client side? Then these are all the drawbacks. like it's not strictly typed, it is not strongly typed, browser compatibility issues are there, it is not secured. Another point is JavaScript. JavaScript can be disabled in browser. JavaScript can be disabled in browser. It can be blocked in browser. If JavaScript is blocked in browser, it is blocked in browser. That means obviously if JavaScript is blocked in browser, that means so whatever you written client side will not work, will never work. How to know whether JavaScript is blocked or not, how to block, this all we will see, we will discuss about that. But important is JavaScript can be disabled. If JavaScript is disabled, all your client-side interactions and validations will not work anymore. So these are all the technical problems. And browser compatibility related issues we have to handle. We have to handle explicitly. Now, what is solution for this? Solution is nothing but, so better solution is better use a library, and that library is jQuery. Better use a library, and the library is jQuery. So jQuery is a JavaScript library. The intention of jQuery is to reduce the compatibility issues, to reduce the lengthy logic that we need to write in JavaScript. That you will learn later in jQuery point, I will tell you. But solution for JavaScript is jQuery. But jQuery also have problems. That's the reason the solution for jQuery now AngularJS, React.js, Angular, Vue.js, people are using that. What are those problems in jQuery and all, we will learn when we start working with it. Initially, we need to just understand what are the problems with the JavaScript, the problems in JavaScript, right? Technically, what are the major issues in JavaScript? So these are basic points about JavaScript and its features. Right now, important is when you are dealing with JavaScript with HTML. The first important point is why JavaScript is used with HTML. You can explain now why, because you learned these points. You tell one point in interview like DOM manipulation. That means 80% of your answer is completed. That means interviewer will be satisfied with that. And if he additionally asks, then you can say it reduces burden on server, right? So that's the reason we have to handle validations client side. We have to handle interactions client side. But we cannot simply depend on client side, because client side script can be disabled. Due to that, what happens? So we need to handle both client side and server side. So these are important points. After understanding this, the first point we need to know in while working with JavaScript is practically. So how do we know JavaScript enabled or not? How do we know JavaScript enabled or not in a browser? Enabled or not in a browser? How do we know JavaScript enabled or not in a browser? That is the first point. Actually, to know whether JavaScript enabled or not in a browser, you can use HTML element. You can use HTML element, no script. You can use HTML element, no script. So no script is a HTML element that verifies whether JavaScript is enabled or not in the browser. So how we can use that, how we can handle that? Let's see. So if you want to know whether JavaScript is enabled or not in the browser, then we have to use an element called noScript. That is the first thing. Right. I will open our project. Yeah. Here, let's keep a new folder. Yeah, let's keep a new folder here. Yeah, that is JavaScript. Fine. In that JavaScript folder, I'm adding a new file, home.html. Okay. Now in this home.html, so we are adding some options here, right? Who is that person who is broadcasting the video? Once, if you tell that, we will remove him permanently. Doc type HTML head, some title, some demo, and in the body section. Before starting with JavaScript, I want to know whether JavaScript is enabled on my browser or not. JavaScript is enabled on my browser, because without knowing that, if I start writing JavaScript and using JavaScript, then obviously I cannot expect the same output what I am looking for. Right? So what the first point here is, how do we know whether JavaScript enabled or not? By using, so you can use the element noScript. So you just write noScript and you put a message, right? Please enable JavaScript on your browser. Please enable JavaScript on your browser, right? Please enable JavaScript on your browser. We have to just define that, right? So this message will be displayed only when JavaScript is not available, right? You can have other contents in your page. Suppose I have a heading, testing JavaScript. So here we are defining a message. Please enable JavaScript on your browser, right? Now I will save this. I will run this page. You can see that currently that message is not there, because currently JavaScript is working in the browser. If JavaScript is working in the browser, that means it is fine. So JavaScript is working in the browser, that means it is fine. So that means the message is not there. The message will be displayed only when JavaScript is not working in the browser. How? Let's disable JavaScript. To disable JavaScript, you can go to Chrome:/settings. In Chrome settings, this is Chrome settings. You can search for JavaScript. So when I search for JavaScript, you can see, you will find site settings. In the site settings, you can see JavaScript allowed. An option is there, JavaScript allowed. Click on that, and JavaScript allowed. Here we can block it. JavaScript blocked. When JavaScript is blocked, when I refresh, you can see that JavaScript is disabled. Then immediately this message will come. Please enable JavaScript on your browser. Now many times this question comes is, why they have given a facility to block JavaScript. They have given a facility to block JavaScript means JavaScript having some technical problems. Means what are those problems? They haven't given an option disable, enable. They directly given an option saying block. That means they are saying that you can block JavaScript. Why to block JavaScript? Because several times we will face problems with JavaScript. Security issues also will come. One of the main problem is JavaScript is well utilized by Trojans actually. Trojan means in your device, in your computer, there will be a software which will broadcast your information to others. It will broadcast your information to others. That means if that software is running, then your information can be viewed by others. Those are all called Trojans actually. And they primarily depend on JavaScript only. Through JavaScript only, they send information to others. That is a threat. That is not good. For example, just like suppose you see in your mobile, when you are using bank, OTPs will come, transactions. When OTP comes, generally you observe some applications read OTP automatically and they will type. They will not ask you to type. You may think that it is a good facility, but that is the biggest security problem. If you allow like that, that means you are allowing some XYZ application to read your OTPs and use them. That's security wise not good. You have to disable. Like for example, I think many of you are using Truecaller. When you are using such Truecaller like sites applications, they always have this technical issue. The point is they can read before you type. That's not good actually. That is dangerous. It can be misused also. You can't complain on that. That's the reason. So we have to, and they all depend on client-side scripts only. That is the reason many times we need to disable client-side script to avoid such issues. So if we block JavaScript, then such things will not happen. But remember, blocking JavaScript completely for all websites, we don't block. You know, na, there is a block sites option. You can add websites and you can type the site name. Only from that site, JavaScript will be blocked. We have that facility also. But will you allow or not? That depends on the requirement. So if your JavaScript is enabled, that means allowed, and refresh, that message will not come. So no script is a message, no script is an element which is used to tell so whether JavaScript is enabled or not. If JavaScript is enabled, then it will not show any message. If JavaScript disabled, then immediately whatever the message kept inside that no script, it will be displayed. That's what actually technically JavaScript is. Means first point, how to know whether JavaScript enabled or not. Okay. Next point is how to integrate, or you can say that how to integrate a client-side script, a client, you can say JavaScript. How to integrate JavaScript into HTML page. How to integrate JavaScript into HTML page. How we can integrate JavaScript into HTML page. No need to explain this also because already you know, just like CSS. The point is, what is the answer for this is JavaScript can be used in HTML page. Can be used in HTML page. A inline, B embedded, and C external file. That means how to integrate JavaScript into HTML page. JavaScript can be integrated into HTML page. It can be integrated into HTML page in 3 techniques. We can use inline technique, we can use embedded technique, and you can use external file. No need to explain what these 3 are. Already you know. You learned about them in CSS, I told you. Inline, embedded, and external file. What is meant by inline? Inline technique. What is inline technique? Inline technique means in this method, JavaScript functions are written for every element individually. In this method, JavaScript functions are written for every element individually. So they are written for every element individually. So what is problem in this? The problem is nothing but we cannot reuse the functions. Reusability issues will come. Advantage is it is faster, but reusability issues will come. Just like CSS, we can write styles inline, we can write styles embedded, we can write styles in external file. Similarly, JavaScript also can be written inline, it can be written embedded, it can be written external file. Those points we'll see. Inline means the JavaScript functions are written for every element individually. So what is the problem in that is you cannot reuse the methods, reuse the functions. You cannot reuse the functions. Right? If you want only for specific element to work, we don't want any reusability, then we can write inline. How? Remember, functions and all you will learn later. That is not the point. You need to just concentrate on what is meant by inline. What I am writing, why I am writing like functions and all, don't worry, that's you are going to learn. You need to concentrate on what is meant by inline technique. That's it. Inline technique means, for example, see here, I'm writing a button. So here I'm using a button. So just testing JavaScript. Okay. Here I'm adding a button. And I will give the name as print page. That is the button. Now this is a button. On print page button, I need to invoke printer and print the page. Then directly I can write JavaScript for this element. On is equal to window.print. That's it. You don't need to write anywhere. You can directly write your JavaScript inside that element. What is on click? What is window.print? That you will learn later. Don't worry. That is not the point you need to concentrate on. You need to just concentrate on what is meant by inline. Inline means for every element we can write like this. That means on click, that means when button is clicked, it will handle this functionality. Now I will save this. I will refresh the page and click that print page button. It is working with printer options. That is fine. That means it is working for printer options. Right? That means the key point here is this is faster because it is written within the element, but we cannot reuse Suppose I want to reuse that functionality to others also. That means on another button click also, I want the same print functionality. Then I have to write this again. This is one method, it's fine. If there is a big logic which we have to handle regularly, then writing inline is not correct always. It will not help always. But for small functionalities, if we don't want to reuse, this is enough. This is enough. This is inline technique. So in inline technique, JavaScript functions are written. JavaScript functions are written directly inside the element. Directly inside the element. So you can write directly inside the element like this. This is a small example of how we can write inside the element. Directly how we can configure. If I want to reuse, then what we can do is we can use embedded. We can use embedded. Embedded means in this method, the JavaScript functions are defined within the page, by using script element, so that you can access and reuse the functions to access and reuse the functions. That is what actually the concept of how we can use embedded. Just like CSS, already we learned styles. Only the point is, this time in embedded technique, what we do is in the head section, we write a script. This script will have a function printing, and this function will use window.print. And on click, we call the printing function. That means wherever I need to print, I can just call this printing function from any location. It can add some more functionalities. We can extend. Not only reusability, extensibility also there. So that means, remember, what is this function and all you will learn later. That's not the concept I told you. So script is an element. And in the script element, I already told you, if you remembered, while learning CSS, we can keep in head section, we can keep in body section. What is the purpose of keeping in head section? What is the purpose of keeping in body section? Also, I explained. The same rule for this JavaScript also. But how to write the script element, there are some more points I will tell you. But initially, this is embedded technique. Embedded technique, that means the script is written. The script is written within the page by using a script element. And when you write within the page by using script element, we can access and use from any location. Not only button, everyone can use that access and reusability concepts. So if you want to reuse within the page, then we can go with embedded technique. So we have line and we have embedded. But while writing embedded, there are so many other points you need to understand. So the MIME type about script, the strict mode about the script, legacy browsers script, technical points are there while writing that we need to understand. And another point is how to write in external files and how to use them. Then we can start working with more examples on JavaScript that we will see tomorrow, right? In tomorrow's session, we will work with some more basics. Then we can start examples on JavaScript. Directly, we cannot start example on JavaScript until or unless we know the basics first. Those basics we will finish by tomorrow. Then we can start working with examples on JavaScript, right? Tomorrow we'll continue with that.